I'm Jim Walsh. I'm a research associate here at MIT's Security Studies program. I'm a product of this program. This is where I got my PhD. And my focus is in international security, and in particular on issues having to do with nuclear nonproliferation. And I guess over the last 10 plus years, I've been, more than anything else, looking at Iran, North Korea, and other countries that are of current policy concern with regard to their nuclear programs. And I've been to both Iran and North Korea. And of course, Iran is much in the news these days because of its nuclear program and because of what's happened in Iran. Back in June, early in the summer, Iran had an election. It was a disputed election, an election that brought out protesters, and those protesters were met with violence and a general meltdown within the Iranian government at a time when Iran was on the eve of coming to negotiations with a new American president, President Obama. And there was a lot of hope that that election, regardless of which way it went, whether Ahmadinejad won or whether one of his opponents won, that would represent a way to start anew, to hit the reset button on U.S.-Iranian relations. But things did not go as planned. And right now there's tremendous turmoil, protests in Iran, paranoia on the part of Iranian authorities, fearful of their own people, fearful of outside intervention, and real question marks remain about what will the future hold with regard to Iran's nuclear program. So what I thought I would do is just give you a quick background on Iran's nuclear program and sort of lay out the scenarios as we look at them both politically and for the nuclear program. The background, of course, is that Iran has had a nuclear program since the mid-1980s. It's a program that really didn't make many strides. It was adrift, didn't accomplish much from 1984 to 1987. It was not a priority. But beginning in 1987, the program made real strides. And the issue here is not Iran having civilian nuclear program. All countries under the Nuclear Nonproliferation Treaty are entitled to have a civilian nuclear program. The concern is a particular technology, a particular nuclear technology, in this case called enrichment. And what enrichment does is it allows you to produce the fuel, when you produce low enriched uranium, the fuel for a civilian nuclear power reactor. Now, you can't build a bomb with a civilian nuclear power reactor, and you can't build a bomb with low enriched uranium. But unfortunately, that enrichment technology, in this case centrifuges, that is used to produce that low enriched uranium for fuel, is the very same technology you can use to produce highly enriched uranium, which is what you use for nuclear weapons. And so the West, the U.S. in particular, has been concerned about Iran's enrichment program, fearful that this was simply taking it to the edge of an ability to produce nuclear weapons at some later point. And Iran pushing back and insisting it has the right to enrich, like other countries have the right to enrich, Japan, Brazil, Germany, and others who have enrichment technology that could, in theory, be used to produce highly enriched uranium. Well, over the course of the Bush administration, there was a lot of back and forth and not much progress. And essentially what we had was a race between sanctions and centrifuges. Iran would build lots of centrifuges. These are the little pieces of the enrichment process. They started with 164. The last International Atomic Energy Agency report suggests they have somewhere around 8,000. And they continue to build them. And so the West has imposed sanctions. Economic sanctions, political sanctions, insisting that Iran suspend or possibly end its enrichment program. And so Iran, in response to those sanctions, has reduced its cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency. And so we're sort of in this negative cycle where they build centrifuges, we put on sanctions, they get upset at the sanctions and respond, and as each day passes, both sides grow more suspicious of the other. Now, it was hoped that with a new president coming to office in the United States and a new president coming, or potentially a new president coming to office in Iran, that this might set the stage for some sort of serious negotiation and resolution of the problem. But as I indicated, things didn't work out that way. There were the June elections, the political meltdown, the protests, arrests, beatings, and a retraction on the part of the Iranian government. The Iranian government, the nuclear issue has always been sort of a unifying issue. Both reformers and hardliners supported the idea of a civilian nuclear program, in part out of national pride. Iran is a country that feels that it is the as a legacy of a great civilization, and that it's the most sophisticated country in the Middle East. That's what Iranians say, or in Southwest Asia. And they feel that as a great power with a great history, that they're entitled to be a technological power, and then that includes civilian nuclear technology. They've never said that they wanted nuclear weapons. They have said that nuclear weapons would violate their religious principles, would violate the Koran, but still suspicions continue, in part because for many of those 20-odd years where Iran was working and rebuilding its nuclear program, it did it in secret. And it most likely did violate its safeguards. It's the rules and regulations meant to regulate countries' ability to produce nuclear energy or other nuclear technology. So lots of suspicion on both sides, and unfortunately suspicion that was mutual and legitimate. We rightly suspect Iran because of its patchy nuclear past, the fact that it engaged in concealment activities, and understandably, the Iranians don't trust the U.S. and Britain in particular, who in 1953 tried to successfully staged a coup and toppled their government, who in the 1980s supported Saddam Hussein when Saddam Hussein attacked Iran, and supported Saddam Hussein even after he used chemical weapons against Iran. So there's a lot of bad blood, a lot of suspicion, a lot of bad feeling. So now we come to a point where under President Obama and under re-elected, at least claimed to be re-elected, President Ahmadinejad, the stage is set for potential negotiations. What's going to happen? Everyone wants to know, but there are real doubts about progress. There's one camp that says progress in this regard is unlikely. It's unlikely because some say because Iran isn't serious. It would never be serious. It wants nuclear weapons no matter what. And that point of view flies in the face of the intelligence community's consensus finding, which is it's not inevitable that Iran become a nuclear weapon state. It's certainly not going to happen anytime soon. And if anything, it's open and subject to bargaining and pressure and all the sorts of things that could influence a decision, that it's not inevitable. But some people think it's inevitable. Some people who don't think it's inevitable are nevertheless doubtful that we're going to make much progress, because what they see in Iran is the sort of pragmatic conservatives who used to be part of the government. They've been pushed out or marginalized as a result of the internal dissent and the problems after the election. So you have hardliners who are even more hardline than your average hardliners. They're the ones who now predominate within the Iranian nuclear decision-making process. So people are doubtful about that. Others are doubtful because they wonder, can Iran, in the middle of a domestic crisis, be in any position to come to a bargaining table, have a unified position, and feel like they can bargain from a position of strength? The Iranians always want to bargain from a position of strength. The Americans always want to bargain from a position of strength. So some are doubtful that Iran, even if they wanted to, would be in a position to come and be able to have a serious negotiation because of their own internal problems.